What's up everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of the Jimmy Restoration series. In today's video, we're going to be performing an in-depth exterior detail. As always, a huge thanks to O'Reilly Auto Parts for the continued support of the series. For this video, I didn't want to just do another how-to. There's tons of those all across YouTube. I just want to try to get the Jimmy looking as nice as possible. You know, it's old, it has 200,000 miles on it, and the paint isn't in the best of shape. I'd like to actually repaint this one day, but until we get to that point, there's still a lot of stuff we can do here to bring it back to life. Full disclosure, I am by no means a professional. Some of the things that I do may differ from what you do. There's a lot of different trains of thoughts on the processes of detailing, but I hope throughout this video that I can at least give you guys some of the tips and tricks that I find useful when I'm detailing my personal vehicles while just having fun. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
First things first, we can go ahead and start gathering our supplies. And I'm curious to know what kind of products that you guys typically prefer to use on your own cars. You know, some of the things that you've found successes with in the past, some of the things that you try to avoid. Post them in the comments below. This is just some of the products that I have. I have quite a lot of detailing supplies, you know, just a little bit of everything. We're running kind of a temporary setup right now until I can get a water source at the new shop. But yeah. A lot of Meguiar stuff. I typically prefer them when it comes to waxes and polishes. Have some 303 products here and there, some Eagle One stuff, and Lexol leather cleaner and conditioner, which is by far my favorite stuff to use on leather. It is absolutely awesome. But assortment of brushes, some silicone grease for weather stripping, rags, microfibers, spare bottles, just all sorts of stuff. So let's go ahead and grab our wash buckets.
So before working on a vehicle, whether it be fixing something or detailing, it's always important to take the proper safety precautions. Basically, just use whatever you feel is appropriate based on what you're doing. Goggles, earplugs, and rubber gloves are super helpful with detailing. As you guys just saw, we filled up the wash and rinse buckets and set up the electric pressure washer. Now, a pressure washer is not at all necessary. It's a nice tool to have, but a normal garden hose with household pressures is more than enough for most washing, detailing jobs. The thing about using a pressure washer that you gotta watch out for is the pressures, especially on an older vehicle like this, because you can not only damage the paint, but emblems, stickers, and all of that kind of stuff. So I normally use this for wheels, tires, undercarriages, and things like that, but you can definitely use it on the paint. Just be careful. I am gonna use it on the Jimmy, but only to provide a nice layer of foam. We're gonna do everything else with the garden hose. So before I start sudsing this thing down, I'm going to first take the pressure washer and carefully give it a thorough rinse just to knock off any loose dirt. Again, when it comes to pressure washing, you want to be careful, not just on old paint, but new paint as well. Especially on high impact areas like this where you're more likely to have chips. If you get too close with a high pressure washer, you can actually start flaking paint off of those chips and make them exponentially worse. Here we have pinstriping coming across, so we want to be careful about that. We don't want to chip paint across the grill, so keep a safe distance and you'll be alright. Whenever I'm washing a vehicle, I typically start wheels first, just because, you know, there's some of the dirtiest parts of a vehicle with all that road grime, brake dust, and just all that nasty stuff. You don't want to get the body nice and clean and then do the wheels and risk splashing all that junk back on the body, and it just creates more work for yourself. With filming and stuff, I completely forgot to do that, so we're going to go ahead and switch gears and take care of the wheels. So cleaning wheels and tires and wheel wells is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of different products out there that'll make this job a whole lot easier. Some people would just prefer some good old-fashioned elbow grease and some soap and water. Others, you know, a good all-purpose cleaner or a dedicated wheel cleaner. It really just depends on what kind of wheel you have. If it's painted, if it's just aluminum, polished aluminum, chrome, just the possibilities are endless, and it's up to you to research what products are best to use for your wheels. Along with whatever product you're going to use to clean the wheels, a microfiber towel is also handy, or a terry cloth towel. I like to use microfibers just because they're softer. A nice plastic bristled brush for cleaning tires, as well as a small detailing brush for getting inside, you know, like the 4x4 logos here and inside the lug nuts. These actually have a little metal lip around them, so I took some painter's tape and wrapped around just so we don't risk marring the inside of any of these components. If you're using an all-purpose cleaner to do all of this type of stuff, don't be afraid to really soak everything, get in all of the cracks and stuff, because it's just going to make your life easier. It's going to go ahead and start dissolving all of that loose stuff so you can really get in there and get the hard stuff. You can leave it on for, I don't know, 20-25 seconds or so, and then you don't want to let it dry. Same thing with like soap on paint and stuff. Try to do this in the shade, keep it rinsed, or keep it reapplied, and then when you're done, just wash it off thoroughly. So the wheels came out pretty good. Unfortunately, they're just in terrible cosmetic shape. There's some curb rest, there's a lot of clear coat peeling, some pitting on the face, so they just need to be refurbished, which I hope to do during some portion of this series. But we gave them a thorough clean. They're looking about as good as they're going to look, so we can go ahead and move on to tackling the body. Now for the fun part. Whenever possible, you want to wash vehicles in the shade. You don't want to risk water or soap drying on and leaving residue, because then you're going to have to wax and or polish, and it's just going to cause so much more work for you. The unfortunate thing is, though, not everybody has a shaded area to work. In that case, you need to make sure that the paint is at least somewhat cool. If something's been sitting out in the sun all day long, you don't want to just go hard at it, because it can actually shock the clear coat and cause like little minor cracks and stuff. You know, if you put hot water on a cold windshield or cold water on a hot windshield, you can crack a window. It's very similar to paint. Now, the biggest problem with the Jimmy's original paint is that there are tons of tiny cracks all over the top of it and even down some of the sides. I don't know if that's just a factory defect, old paint, or if it was washed improperly over the years, but it's just a good thing to remember. Some may find the whole soap cannon thing to be an extreme waste of money and soap, but how cool is that? Basically, by doing this, you're pre-soaking it again. It's like going to a car wash, which you really shouldn't do. But it pre-soaks the body, it loosens up the dirt even more. So we're going to disconnect this now, spray all this soap back off, and then we're going to use the buckets to, you know, take a wash mitt and wash it by hand. Now that I've had my fun, I gotta put some elbow grease into this thing. So now we have to wash it by hand. We can use our two separate wash buckets that I showed you guys earlier, and I'm not gonna use the pressure washer anymore, just a simple garden hose with a nozzle. When it comes to washing the body, my preference is to use a nice soft mitt. Now there's a whole bunch of different types of mitts out there. Depending on your budget, you have more basic ones, and then you have like the Cadillac microfiber ones that have the bristles that look like little cheese puffs. If you have nice wheels and want to go the extra mile, you can also get another mitt to use just on the wheels. So when washing a vehicle, it's a good rule of thumb to go from top down. And if you think about it, it makes sense because more times than not, the dirtiest portions of the vehicle are all across the bottom because the tires and the road and all of the grit and grime that's being kicked up. So yeah, go from top down. You want to spray the soap off as frequently as you can. Take your mitt, go through the rinse bucket, knock out all of that dirt, and give it a nice swoop into clean water and get yourself a nice handful of suds. If you have a truck, SUV, or just something on the tall side, take it from me, buy a step ladder. It's going to make getting to the roof a lot easier and safer. What you don't want to do is try to stand on the door thresholds because you're not only going to risk getting your interior dirty or stained, filled with water or whatever, you can also risk slipping and falling and hurting yourself, which is definitely not a good thing. So get a step ladder, you'll appreciate it later. A tire is also pretty important when detailing. You want to avoid wearing things that have big buckles and studs because if you have to lean up against the vehicle, you don't want to have anything on you that could potentially scratch it. I don't have the absolute most appropriate attire on with my jacket and zippers and stuff, but I'm being very careful. You got to take the necessary precautions, but the most ideal situation would be like a sweatshirt, sweatpants, maybe an apron, something soft, something comfortable, flexible, and again, doesn't have anything on it that could scratch the vehicle. As I'm working from top to bottom, I'm trying to wash the truck in sections just to make it a little bit easier so I can keep track of what I've already done and I don't have to let soap sit on the truck too long. There's a big body line that runs all the way around the Jimmy and it's a good stopping point so I can basically wash the upper half first, then tackle the lower half, and again, the vehicle gets dirtier as you go down, so it just seems like the natural progression of things. Just like with waxing, which I'll talk about more in just a moment, I don't like washing in circular motions. I go in straight lines that are perpendicular to each other to try to limit the possibility of swirl marks developing over time. Again, you can help prevent scratches and swirl marks by keeping your mitt clean. Depending on how much time you have, you can also take your wash even further by grabbing some extra detail brushes and getting in the cracks of everything from the wiper blades to the gas cap to the door handles, mirrors, weather stripping, and more. When it comes to your final rinse, I actually discovered a pretty cool trick a while back. So having a nozzle on your garden hose is super convenient for a lot of reasons. It does what it's supposed to do, it gets the soap off, there you go. But if you start to dry it, you'll notice there's thousands and thousands of little water droplets everywhere that's going to saturate your towel almost immediately. You're going to use several towels and again, it's just going to make more work for yourself. So I figured out if you take the nozzle off, turn the spigot on just a little bit so you have a nice gentle flow out of the hose and just drape it over the vehicle, the water falls off in sheets, eliminating most of those pesky droplets. When I'm drying, I also like to go in straight lines from top to bottom. Just keep that similar pattern going. It's also nice to have a handful of detailing towels on hand, like the real soft kind. This one I'm using right now is the primary absorber, but after this is done, I have a real soft one that I'm going to go over for the final dry. We actually made excellent time. The sun is just now about to come across the entire driveway. So the last thing I have to do is clean out all of the door jambs. Even though we didn't do anything to the engine, I can go ahead and clean all the crevices here, around the tailgate out back, and then, you know, just let the thing drip dry for a little bit. We'll pull it in the garage and get ready for waxing. I am super, super happy with how this thing has turned out so far. It looks fantastic. But as good as it looks now, it's gonna get even better because now we're ready to pull this thing in the garage. We're gonna clay bar it, polish it, wax it. It's gonna be awesome. Let's go ahead and get it in the garage. The nice thing about O'Reilly being so close to my house is that they have pretty much anything and everything in regards to detailing that the weekend warrior would typically use. There's a lot of specialty equipment out there that you can also get too. It just depends on, you know, your level of expertise, but everything from rags, terry, shop towels, microfiber to all sorts of different types of waxes, all-purpose cleaners, you name it, they pretty much have it. Depending on how above and beyond that you wanted to go, they also have some more professional grade supplies, and if you need to do some body work, which this one needs a little bit if we decide to paint it later on, they have a whole section for that, so it'll likely come in handy. Now that we have the Jimmy in the garage underneath the fluorescents, we can really assess the condition of the paint. Like I said, just off of that thorough wash, it's looking fantastic, way better than it did before. But we can also see all of the defects a lot more too. I mentioned earlier that the biggest problem with this paint is all of the tiny cracks across the entire top of the vehicle. It comes down the sides in certain spots are worse than others. It's a mess, but there is a silver lining here because the clear coat is not peeling, it's not chipping away. It's there, it's just cracked, so I'm pretty confident that we can bring a good shine back to this. To do that, I'm going to do a 3-step wax and polish, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to start out with a compound, followed by a polish, followed by a wax. Before we do any of that, though, we want to clay bar the entire Jimmy to remove any surface impurities, get everything nice and smooth, and at that point, we can start compounding. Clay barring is honestly pretty fun. It's amazing what a simple thing like this can do to your paint finish, because when you're going across the body, especially one that hasn't been done or hasn't been done in a long time, you can feel the grit. You can even hear it. It's like a ch-ch-ch-ch. But after you repeatedly go over certain spots, it starts to get quieter. Then you put your finger across and you're like, ooh, that's really smooth. As you're going across the vehicle, you're going to notice pretty quickly that the clay bar is going to get really dirty. Now, this is perfectly normal. What you would do in this case is just fold it over on itself or flip it over. Try to keep a clean side on the vehicle. And after you're all said and done, the clay bar is going to be really contaminated, so I wouldn't recommend using a used clay bar on a different vehicle. Now that is one dirty clay bar. That's exactly why you don't want to use it on another vehicle after you're done. Would you just check out that shine? I can't believe how well this thing's glossed up so far. We haven't even started compounding.
Fast forward a bit and the Jimmy's all taped up and ready for buffing. Taping is all self-explanatory. It's just a really tedious process, so I figured I would spare you guys the boredom and go ahead and get it taken care of. This is always a good idea to do when waxing, just so you don't have to worry about getting wax on weather stripping, trim pieces, emblems. Plus, when we're using the buffer, we don't have to worry about, getting too close and accidentally nicking some of these fender flares or body side moldings, so it's just a little bit of extra protection. Regardless, we're still going to be careful, especially around the pinstriping, but at this stage, we can move on to compounding.
Of course, we have to 3-step the entire Jimmy, but I want to give you guys an in-depth look at what's about to happen. So to do that, we're going to use the hood as an example, which is easily the worst panel on the whole truck. I'm going to divide the hood into 2 sections using a piece of painter's tape. That way, the side that we're working on, you guys can see the progress, and when it's all said and done, we'll take the tape off and see just how shinier it gets. It's pretty amazing how well this thing is coming out. I mean, it's cracked to oblivion, but it is so much glossier. I can't believe it. And we're just working with compound right now. We haven't even gotten to the other two steps yet. Guys, this is looking so awesome. Just watch. It's fantastic. You don't want to let this stuff dry on the vehicle. It'll be a lot harder to get off later, so work in small sections, wipe it off, and then move to the next section. But after I get this off, we're ready to move on to polishing. I just got this buffer not too long ago. You can vary the speed. It's got this adjustable handle. It's quite fun and certainly beats trying to do all this by hand. You want to be careful around the pinstriping too. This one needs to be replaced, so I'm not too concerned about it, but still, we don't want to burn it off by accident. Now we can move on to the final step, waxing. Just change out our pads. And we are good to go.
Well, you can probably already tell a pretty big difference between the two sides. Let's go ahead and take this tape off. Just for reference, I taped it to the right of that center hood line. Dang. Very cool. You can see just where the dull stops and the shine begins. I'd say that's a pretty good success. You can see how defined the line is even more from this side. There it is. Absolutely awesome. All right, now on to the rest of it. Compound, polish, and wax. Even though a buffer is an incredibly useful tool, it takes a lot of practice to get down perfect. I'll be the first to admit I am not perfect at it, but I've learned a lot over the years, and basically the more you do it, the more you find what works better. You just gotta remember certain things like don't keep the buffer in one place for too long because you can risk burning the paint. Of course, if you don't mask off everything with tape, don't get close to weather stripping, trim pieces, molding, because again, you can burn plastic and that kind of stuff is, you know, once it's messed up, so be very careful. So one thing that's always irritated me about this thing is all of this clear coat staining across that two-tone gray. This is a good looking color scheme, but this just ruins it, and it was like that when I bought it. I can only assume somebody tried to put spray shine or something on the side moldings and the fender flares that just wasn't compatible and stained the clear coat, but I've tried just about everything trying to get this stuff off, and nothing worked until I tackled it with the buffer and some compound. With a lot of elbow grease, it comes off. I am stoked. I hope you guys are as excited as I am to see the final product, but we have one more thing to do, and that's the final wax.
So while the wax is drying, I figured I would try my luck on these wheels, and unfortunately the face won't polish. The clear coat's just coming off and it's seen better days, but these black pockets are actually coming out pretty nice with a little bit of compound and polish, so they'll at least look a little bit darker. This isn't at all necessary either, but I like to put a nice layer of spray shine in the wheel wells. It just darkens things up and makes the tires and wheels like really stand out from the vehicle afterwards, but there's also pros and cons to it. If it's windy outside, you know, just like spray tire shine, it can get on the body and you have to clean it up and stuff. But since we're in the garage, it's well ventilated, but it's not breezy, so everything is staying contained within here, and we still have this tape on, so we don't have to worry about getting tons of overspray on the trim. This shine is unbelievable. Come here and look at this. Golly. This is so slick. It was a lot of work, but putting this tape on sure was nice. Plus, you get this big fancy reveal after you're all done. One nitpicky thing I like to do every now and then is to condition the rubber and weather stripping, especially on older vehicles where you start having parts, getting discontinued, so if something goes bad, you're like, well, what do I do now? Like this. There's an issue right here. It's all dried up, cracking, it's actually splitting apart, but thankfully those are still available, so I'll pick some of those up at some point in time. But everything else on here is still in great shape, so we want to preserve it. There's a bunch of different options out there for conditioning rubber, but I like to use a combination of 303 rubber seal protector and silicone grease. The 303 stuff is great because you can just put it on with a little applicator, let it soak in, it conditions it, no fuss, no muss. The silicone grease is also great, it's just messy and needs to be buffed off, so I usually use it if the vehicle's going to be sitting in the garage for a while and I'm not going to touch it. I'll put it on, let it soak, and wipe it off later. All we got to do now is shine the tires, clean the windows, and she'll be done. So before I clean the windows, I'm going to go ahead and apply some tire shine. Now, some people like shine, some people don't. They make actually satin finishes now, which is pretty cool, but I like a little bit of a glossy finish. I typically prefer using spray shine. It can make a mess, just like if you're spraying it underneath there. You don't really want to spray it on a windy day because it can get all over the body and the windows and stuff, but it's a nice calm day, so we're going to go ahead and do this. You can also get something like this, these Eagle Ones Tire Shine swipes. They're pretty helpful, especially with mobile, and everything is contained within the swipe, so you don't have to worry about pouring some gel on the sponge and getting your hands all messy, so you got some options. All right, guys, here it is. The Jimmy is looking absolutely incredible. Check out that shine. Even with all of those cracks,
That hood looks fantastic.
I mean, just think about it for a second. This is a 1993 model. It's 25 years old. It has just over 200,000 miles on it. Even with the issues that it has, it turned out this good? Call me impressed. I can't believe it. Look at all that. That clear coat staining is gone. And again, check out that reflection. Phenomenal. Plus, with that weather stripping nice and conditioned, it's able to stay supple and looking like new for the long term. Won't have to worry about unexpected cracks from it drying up like we have with this. Again, we got to get that replaced. I also polished that mirror up. Looking very fresh. I guess you can say the wheels are about 5 footers. They look really nice from about 5 feet away. Nothing you can do about the clear coat issues, but they shined up nice, especially with polishing all of the black pockets. Makes things stand out quite a bit. I'm not sure if you can tell from the beginning shots, but this tailgate was super faded. And of course it had all of those cracks, so for it to come back with this kind of luster, I'm very surprised. So that's pretty much it for this video. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. I know this was a longer video, but obviously there was a lot of stuff we needed to cover, and all of that effort really paid off. The Jimmy is looking about as close to brand new as it's ever gonna get. Plus, the best part about detailing is that you don't have to follow exactly what I did, because everybody has their own way of doing things. You might find some things that work better for you, or some products that work better for you, but just get out there, get dirty, and have fun. If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so. There's always a lot more where that came from, and don't forget to hit that little notification bell so you can get notified of new uploads. As always, a huge thanks to O'Reilly Auto Parts for the continued support of the series. Don't forget to leave a like below, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.